Morning all.
Good morning, ma'am.
Can you see the PPT? Can you see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Today I am going to teach about the gross anatomy of kidneys. Kidneys are the part of urinary system. Two kidneys, these are the excretory organs which help in production of the urine. Then the urine which will pass through the ureters collected in the urinary bladder, which is a reservoir. Whenever it is filled, feel a sense of fulling, then it is micturated outside through the urethra. So kidneys are the excretory organs which help for the production of urine, that is urination. Whereas micturition is different. The urine which is collected in the bladder, if it fills more, then the bladder will have a sense of full. Then the micturition reflex is initiated. Then that there occurs a urination. The urine is passed outside. Kidneys are a pair of excretory organs which are situated in the first abdominal wall, one on each side of the vertebral column. As these are the excretory organs, they help in excretion of the waste products of metabolism and also maintain the water and electrolyte balance. In addition to that, the kidneys secrete renin for the autoregulation of the blood pressure. Then erythropoietin, which helps for the production of the red blood cells, and it helps in the production of 125 hydroxy cholecalciferol, which helps for the calcium metabolism. In location, kidneys are bean-shaped organs. They are present mainly in the lumbar region, partly in the epigastric and hypochondriac and umbilic. Mainly in the lumbar, hypochondriac, epigastric and umbilical regions. Vertically, they extend from T12 to L3 vertebra. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left kidney. Why the right kidney is slightly lower than the left? Yes? Why the right kidney is placed at a lower level compared to the left? Yes, I am asking question. Are you listening to the class?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, it has to accommodate liver. That's why it's lower.
The right side, as liver is there, the structures present on the right side are at a lower level compared to the left side. The left kidney is slightly nearer to the median plane than the right. Right is more obliquely placed. Measurements, the length is 11 to 12 centimeter, around 11.5 centimeter. Breadth is 6 centimeters and thickness is 3 centimeters. It weighs around 150 grams in case of males and 135 grams in case of females. Axis of the kidney. The kidneys are not vertically, they are not oriented in a straight line. They are oriented obliquely. We see the long axis of the kidneys, it is oblique. It is directed downwards and laterally, so that the upper ends or the upper poles of the kidneys are nearer to the midline than the lower poles. Lower poles, they are away from the midline. Like the distance between the midline and the lower poles is more compared to the upper poles. And the transverse axis is also not in a same plane. This is the transverse section. You can see the kidneys are present over the posterior abdominal wall. The transverse axis is also not straight. It is directed backwards and laterally. You can see directed backwards and laterally because the kidneys are placed by the side of the vertebral column. They are present in the paravertebral gutter. So the transverse axis is directed backwards and laterally. And one more is a transpyloric plane, which passes at the level of L1 and pylorus of the stomach. This transpyloric plane, it cuts the upper part of the hilum of the right kidney and lower part of the hilum of the left kidney, because left kidney is positioned at a higher level. This is the transpyloric plane. So at the transpyloric plane, we have the hilum of the kidneys. Then kidneys, they are present on the posterior abdominal wall in the upper part, like the lumbar region and hypochondriac region. Some factors maintain the position of the kidneys. These are the pressure exerted by the neighboring viscera. These are present in the posterior abdominal wall. Numerous organs are present anterior to the kidneys. The pressure exerted by them, which is in turn obtained by the tone of the abdominal muscles and by the disposition of the renal fascia, that's the coverings, different coverings of the kidneys, and the distribution of the renal fat. The pedicles of the kidney. Pedicles are nothing but the structures which are at the hilum. They connect like this, the abdominal aorta, through which the renal arteries will originate and enter into the hilum. The renal veins, they exit from the hilum, open into the inferior vena cava, and also the pelvis and the ureter. These pedicles, the renal artery and the renal vein, are called the pedicles. These attach the hilum to the midline structures. So they also play a role in keeping the kidneys in position. The kidneys move with the respiration to a little extent, and the kidneys, they are palpable in case of thin individuals by the bimanual palpation. One hand is kept back in the loin region and one hand is kept in the anterior abdominal wall, and the kidneys, the lower poles can be palpated at the end of the deep inspiration. This is called as bimanual palpation. Like with the help of two hands, we are going to palpate the kidneys. That's why it is called bimanual palpation. Otherwise, kidneys are not palpable. In case of thin individuals and in individuals with the thin, weak musculature, we can palpate. If the kidneys are enlarged, then that time we can palpate the kidneys by bimanual palpation. The coverings of the kidney. There are different coverings from within outwards. These are the fibrous capsule, which is a true capsule. Then outside that, the perinephric fat, collection of fat, which is around the kidney, is perinephric fat. And outside that is the renal fascia. This is the false capsule, also called as fascia of Girotta. Then outside, like behind the renal fascia, we have the paranephric fat. Again, the collection of fat. These are the coverings of the kidney. We study in detail. Fibrous capsule, this is nothing but the condensation of the fibrous stroma of the kidney. Like wherever you get the fibrous capsule, the true capsule, it is found with the condensation of stroma of that organ. Okay. This true capsule can be stripped off if the kidneys are normal healthy kidneys. We can strip. Here you can see this is the true capsule is stripped off from the organ. If it is, this is one, like granular kidneys, cystic kidneys, that time the capsule cannot be stripped off easily. So, this is the transverse section. Here you can see the kidney is invested outside by the true capsule, the fibrous capsule. This true capsule, it lines the renal sinus also. So the renal sinus, it lines the renal sinus. In case of mobile kidneys, the true capsule is divided along the lateral border and the posterior flap is rolled backwards and it is sutured to the last rib to make it immobile, to make the kidneys immobile. In case of acute nephritis, there is a suppression of the urine. To release the pressure in the kidneys, the capsule is divided and stripped. To release the pressure, it's called decapsulation. And the perinephric fat. Peri is around. The fat around the kidneys is the perinephric fat. This kidney surrounded by this yellow structure is the perinephric fat. This fat is abundant along the borders. See, this is the lateral border, this is the medial border. Along the medial border, that is the hilum, the fat will enter into the renal sinus. That is the perinephric fat. It surrounds the kidney and forms the cushioning effect. Renal fascia. This is the false capsule. It is formed by condensation of extraperitoneal connective tissue around the kidneys. This renal fascia, it has two layers. This is the anterior layer. Can you see my cursor? Can you see the cursor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the anterior layer. This is the posterior layer. At the lateral borders, these two anterior layers fuse with each other and continuous laterally with the fascia transversalis. When we trace it medially, when we trace the anterior layer medially, it covers the midline structures such as infravena cava, abdominal aorta, the renal vessels, and continuous with the fellow of the opposite side. Is continuous with the anterior layer of the right kidney. Then the posterior layer. This is the posterior layer. Posterior layer, it blends with the fascia covering. This is psoas major muscle by the side of the body of the lumbar vertebra. It covers the psoas. It blends with the fascia covering the psoas major. That is psoas fascia, and it is attached to the bodies of the lumbar vertebra. That's a posterior layer. If you trace it laterally, the two layers, that's the anterior and posterior layers, they merge with each other. The anterior layer is called as fascia of Todd and posterior layer is called as fascia of Chakravarti. The renal fascia, okay, this is the same thing. If we trace it vertically, this is the upper pole of the kidney. the two layers, they merge with each other and split again to enclose the suprarenal gland. You can see the suprarenal gland, the gland present above the kidney, above the upper pole of the kidney. This is the sagittal section. We can see to for the vertical disposition of the renal fascia. And this is the kidney, ureter. This is suprarenal gland which is present above the upper pole. This is the posterior abdominal wall. This is the sagittal section. At the upper pole, the renal fascia fuse with each other like it encloses. The upper pole, the renal fascia is complete and it splits to enclose the suprarenal gland. At the upper pole of the suprarenal gland, this fascia blends with the fascia beneath the diaphragm. That's called suspensory ligament of the suprarenal gland. Okay. The suprarenal gland and the kidney, they are enclosed in separate sheaths. So this it's not continuous. So when the kidney it sinks downwards, it will not pull the suprarenal gland downwards. Okay, as they are enclosed in separate sheaths. The renal fascia, if we trace downwards, it encloses the ureter and continuous with the fascia, the extraperitoneal, the fascia of the pelvis. So below it is not complete, it is not enclosed. Above it is closed. Below it is continuous with the fascia covering the pelvis. This is the vertical disposition of the renal fascia. Behind the kidney, this fat, what we see is the paranephric fat. This is the paranephric fat. This occupies the interval between the renal fascia, that's a posterior layer of renal fascia, and this is vas major muscle, this is quadratus lumborum, which is covered by thoracolumbar fascia, anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia, and fascia transversalis. So the paranephric fat is enclosed between posterior layer of renal fascia and anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia and fascia transversalis. This whole thing is a paranephric fat which is present behind the kidneys. That is a paranephric fat. So that's about the coverings of the kidney. Now we'll see or study the presenting parts of the kidney. Kidney is bean shaped. It is vertically oriented, so we have the upper pole and the lower pole, and two borders, lateral border and the medial border, and two surfaces. This is the anterior surface, posterior surface is behind. It is reddish brown in color. It has two poles, the upper pole and the lower pole. The upper poles kidneys are oriented vertically downwards obliquely. The upper poles are nearer to the midline. The lower poles are away from the midline. The lower pole is pointed and the upper poles are broad. Down the upper poles we have the suprarenal glands, and along the lower poles, pelvis of the kidney continues the ureter. It's about the pole surfaces. This is the lateral view. You can see this is the anterior surface, which is irregular. This anterior surface, it comes in contact with the different viscera of the abdomen. This is the posterior surface, which is flat. This lies over the posterior abdominal wall on the paravertebral gutter. Posterior surface is flat, anterior surface is irregular. Borders. It has two borders. This is the lateral border, which is convex. Medial border is concave. It is depressed in the middle, which is called as hilum of the kidney. That is the medial border. Hilum, it renal depression through which present in the middle of the medial border, through which different structures enter or leave the kidneys. These are from front to back: the renal vein, renal artery, and the renal pelvis. From before backwards, front to back. The renal vein is first one. Then it divides into numerous branches. The renal artery, this will divide into 5 segmental branches, and the ureter. This renal pelvis continues as ureter along the lower core of the kidney. So this renal ureter or the pelvis, it is directed downwards, and it is the most posterior structure in the hilum of the kidney. Other structures are the renal lymphatics, nerves, and the perinephric fat. The relations of the kidneys. Kidneys are retroperitoneal organs. They are partially covered, but that is only anterior surface is covered by the peritoneum. The relations common for the kidneys are the upper walls. They are related to the suprarenal glands. First, we'll study posterior relations. Posterior relations are same for right and left, whereas anterior relations, they are different. Is my voice clear? Can you hear the background noise?
Yes.
What is?
And we can hear the background noise.
Okay, posterior relations, they are same for both the kidneys. The left kidney, it reaches up to the 11th rib, and the right kidney, it reaches up to the 12th rib. You can see here, this is the posterior abdominal wall. You can see the outline of the kidney, like where they lie. Now, this is the posterior abdominal wall. The outline of the kidney we can see to study the posterior relations of the kidney. The relations, they are divided to upper and lower. The upper part, related with the arcuate ligaments, medial and lateral arcuate ligaments in the diaphragm, from which the diaphragm originates. The upper part is related with the arcuate ligaments of the diaphragm. Then outside that, the postodiaphragmatic recess will be there. Postodiaphragmatic recess of the dura. Postovertebral recess also. Then below that, we have three muscles from medial to lateral. These are psoas major, quadratus lumborum. This is quadratus lumborum. Outer one is transverse abdominis. These are the three muscles from medial to lateral. The quadratus lumborum, psoas major. This is psoas major covered by psoas fascia. Quadratus lumborum. This is quadratus lumborum muscle, which is covered by the anterior layer of thoracolumbar fascia. And the lateralmost is the transverse abdominis, which is covered by which fascia? Transverse abdominis. Anybody? Yes.
Fascia transversalis.
Yes, it is covered by fascia transversalis. Okay, these are the three muscles which form the posterior relation in the lower larger part of the kidney. Along with this, we have some vessels and nerves from above downwards. These are the subcostal vessels and the nerve. Subcostal nerve is a T12. Then we have hypogastric, ilioinguinal. From above downwards, subcostal vessels and nerves, iliohypogastric nerve, ilioinguinal nerve. These are the posterior relations which form the posterior relations of the kidney. The posterior relations are same for both the kidneys. Now we'll study like two angles which are very important related to the kidneys. Renal angle is formed by, this is the erector spinae muscle, which is a muscle of the back. When we dissect from behind, we'll get the erector spinae. This is the lateral border of the erector spinae and the 12th rib. Lateral border of erector spinae and 12th rib will form an angle which is called as renal angle. The kidneys, the lower part of the kidneys lie in this angle. So any dull aching pain or any pain from the kidney is felt in this. This is the renal angle. You feel pain or tenderness. Whenever the pain will be there, if that point is pressed, the patient will feel more pain. That is the tenderness. In case of pathologies of the kidney, that is the renal angle. Then one more angle is vertebro-costal angle. This is the lateral border of the bodies of the vertebra and the 12th rib. This is the vertebro-costal angle. Here, this is occupied with the lower part of the pleural recess. So, why we should study is, if you want to expose the kidneys from behind, retroperitoneally, we can, like while counting, we should not make mistake in counting the ribs. Sometimes the 12th rib will be very small. That time we confuse the 11th rib as 12th rib and we unfortunately enter into the pleural sac. That will cause like the air may enter into the pleural sac. We may accidentally rupture the pleural sac. Okay, this way we should count the ribs from the sternal angle, or we have to palpate the spines. Then you count accordingly. Sometimes one more extra rib might be there, originating from the L1 or attached to the L1. That time the kidneys will be higher up and will be exposing in the lower part. Okay, that's why the counting of the ribs is very important for exposing. That's the importance of the renal angle and the vertebrocostal angle. You understood this renal angle? Kidneys we can expose by drawing Morris parallel. This is drawn by two horizontal lines and two vertical lines. Two horizontal lines, one above, upper one is at the level of spine of T11. Lower horizontal line is at the level of L3 spine. Vertical lines. Then horizontal lines 2.5 centimeters from the midline and 9 centimeters from the midline. Okay, the parallel or the rectangular structure what we get is a Morris parallelogram. If we expose it from behind, we can approach the kidney. Okay, that is a Morris parallelogram. Here, for the surface marking of the kidney, we should draw this Morris parallelogram first. Then upper poles are nearer to the midline. Lower poles are away from the midline, and the hilum is at the level of L1. Okay, we have to draw the structure of the kidney accordingly. So that's the surface marking of the kidney from behind, and we can expose the kidneys by drawing this parallelogram, Morris parallelogram. That is all about the posterior relations. Now we study the anterior relations, which are different on both the sides. So the right kidney, the upper pole and the upper part of the medial border is related to suprarenal gland. Then below this area, the lateral part and most of the anterior surface is related to the liver. This liver is covered by peritoneum, and the lower part of the medial border is related to the jejunum. The medial border throughout is related to the second part of duodenum. This part is related to second part of duodenum. Here you can see stomach, duodenum, second part of duodenum lying in front of the medial border. Okay, and the lower pole and the adjoining anterior surface is related to the right colic flexure of the colon. Only liver and the coils of the small intestine parts are covered by the peritoneum, whereas rest right suprarenal gland part, the second part of the duodenum part, and the right colic flexure part, they are not covered by the peritoneum. This dark brown is covered by peritoneum of the greater side. That's the relation of the anterior part. Anterior relations of the left kidney, the upper pole and the upper part of the medial border is related to suprarenal gland. Then the medial border and the anterior surface is related to the body of the pancreas. Lower pole is related with the colon. That's the left colic flexure. In the rest part, the lateral border and upper three-fourths of the adjoining anterior surface is related to the spleen. The spleen, it comes in contact with the renal impression on the spleen. Then this triangular area, it is related to the stomach. The medial part of the anterior surface is related to the posterior surface of the stomach. Here, stomach and the kidney, they are separated by a lesser sac. Then the lower part of the anterior surface on the medial side is related to the coils of the jejunum. The brown colored part is covered by the peritoneum, whereas lighter brown is not covered by the peritoneum. Here also you can see the peritoneal reflection, and the rest part, this part is covered by peritoneum, the rest part is not covered by the peritoneum. These are the anterior relations. You have to draw the practice set diagram for this, otherwise like you can imagine the structures for the relations. Here you can see the surface impression. These are the kidneys. Left side it is related to the posterior surface of the kidney, pancreas, jejunum, and you can imagine here we have the colon, right colic fissure, left colic fissure, and the transverse colon. Okay, that's about the anterior relation. Gross structure of the kidney. We need to cut the kidney coronally to study the gross structure. That's a macroscopic structure. Like with the bare eyes, what we can see. If we cut the kidney, what we can see is the macroscopic structure of the kidney. Microscopic structure is dealt in the histology classes. If we cut the kidneys, we can see the outer thin part, which is darker brown in color, is a cortex. Cortex is very thin. The medulla is occupied by the conical structures or pyramidal structures, which are called as renal pyramids. Like cortex occupies 1/3 of the kidney, the outer 1/3. Inner 2/3 is occupied by the medulla and the renal sinus. This is the renal sinus. Here, this is the cortex. The cortex, normally in the cortex, we have the nephrons. This part. The Malpighian corpuscles and the Bowman's capsule will be there in the this part. Cortex. Okay. So thin cortex. Then in the medulla we can see the pyramidal structures or the conical structures, which are called as renal pyramids. These renal pyramids, the apex of the renal pyramid is called as renal papilla, which will project into the renal sinus. This space is called the renal sinus, which is made up of the cup-shaped structures called as minor calyces. This apex of the renal pyramid will open in the minor calyce. The renal papilla contains the columns of Bellini. So in the cortex, we have the nephrons and the striated structures, which are called as medullary rays. From the renal pyramid, these medullary rays, they extend upwards. These medullary rays are nothing but the collecting ducts. The collecting DCT, they will open into distal collecting ducts. They will open into the collecting tubules or the ducts. These collecting ducts, they project into the pyramids. Pyramids are the pale striated structures which contains the excretory, like the excretory part, the ducts. Whereas in the upper part, cortex will get the secretory part. That's the Malpighian corpuscle and the Bowman's capsule. Whereas in the lower part, we have only the ducts. These medullary rays, they pass through the renal pyramids. Like 12 to 20 ducts of Bellini will open at the apex into the minor calyx. Like how the flow of the urine occurs. Okay. This cortex, it projects in between the two renal pyramids, which is called as cortical column of Bertini. These are the renal cortical columns. These are the cortical columns which project in between the renal pyramids. Okay. The cortex contains the secretory part of the nephron. Then the medulla, the pyramids contain the collecting ducts. We will study two terms, lobe of kidney and lobule of the kidney. One renal pyramid with overlying cortical arch and adjacent cortical column forms the one renal lobe. This is the renal lobe of the kidney. The renal pyramid, cortical arch, and the adjacent cortical columns form the lobe of the kidney. This is also one lobe of the kidney. Cortical arch, renal pyramid, adjacent cortical columns. Okay, now study what is lobule of the kidney. Lobe of kidney contains numerous lobules. As you know, medullary rays, they pass from the renal pyramid into the cortex. These medullary rays are nothing but the collecting ducts. One medullary ray which form the central axis and the interlobular blood vessels. The whole thing forms the lobule of the kidney. Like these interlobular are in between the lobules. In the center of the lobule, we have one medullary ray which collects the collecting ducts of numerous nephrons. Numerous nephrons, the collecting ducts, the DCT, they will open into that medullary ray. This medullary ray will pass into the renal pyramid, then it will open into the minor calyx, to the apex of the pyramid. This is how the secretion of the urine occurs into the renal pelvis. From the medullary rays, pass through the renal pyramids, then into the minor calyx. Numerous minor calyces. These are the cup-shaped structures. 2 to 3 minor calyces. They join and form one major calyx. So around 7 to 9 minor calyces will be there in the kidney. These are cup-shaped. Two to three major calyces, they join and form the renal pelvis. This is renal pelvis. This renal pelvis will continue as ureter at the lower pole of the kidney. There is no marking, anatomical marking like that. The pelvis continues as ureter at the lower pole of the kidney. There is no junction between that. It is just the imaginary line which passes along the lower pole of the kidney. Pelvis is a dilated part. Then around the pelvis we have the perinephric fat. That is about the gross structure of the kidney. That's supplied. It is supplied by the renal artery which originates at the junction between L1 and L2. That is, this is superior mesenteric artery, almost at the same level. These are the lateral branches of the abdominal aorta. Right renal artery has a longer course compared to the left one because it is placed, abdominal aorta is placed little to the left side. It passes behind the inferior vena cava and the right renal vein. Right side, left side, it passes behind the left renal vein. Then, when it approaches the hilum, it divides into 5 branches. 4 segmental branches. They pass in front of the pelvis, and one sinus, one segmental artery, it passes behind the pelvis. So these segmental arteries, they supply different segments. According to that, they are named as apical, which is supplied by apical segmental artery. Then superior, also called as anterior, superior, anterior, inferior or middle. In the inferior one, apical, inferior, superior, middle. And in the posterior, this is the anterior surface, this is posterior surface, we will get posterior segment. Nearer the lateral border on the posterior surface, the posterior surface, posterior segment, superior and middle segments, they come in contact. So this is the avascular plane. So the kidney can be divided in this plane to take out the stones in the renal pelvis. Okay, because this is the avascular plane. This is the anterior view, this is the posterior view, this is the lateral view. You can see apical anterior superior, anterior middle, and the inferior. This is the posterior part. These are the different segments of the or vascular segments of the kidney which are separate, supplied by separate segmental branches. These segmental branches, after entering into the segments, they divide into interlobular branches which run in between the lobes. Then they divide into arcuate branches, arcuate arteries that run parallel with base of the pyramids. Like over this, these are the arcuate arteries. They run along the base of the renal pyramid. Then divide into interlobular arteries. Like in between the lobules, they pass and supply the lobule. These are the interlobular. These interlobular arteries will give rise to afferent arteriole, then which will form the glomeruli. Then from the glomeruli, efferent arterioles will start. Then they form peritubular capillaries, venules, interlobular veins, arcuate veins, interlobar veins. The interlobar veins they join and form the renal vein. That's how the blood supply happens. It's the same thing. Segmental arteries form interlobar, lobar, interlobar, arcuate arteries, interlobular arteries, then form the afferent arteriole and glomerulus, then the efferent arterioles, interlobular veins, arcuate veins, they join and form interlobar veins, join and form renal vein. Renal veins will open into inferior vena. Here the left renal vein is longer than the right. This left renal vein has a longer course. It may be compressed by the superior mesenteric artery sometimes. And lymphatic drainage, the lymph, it will drain into the lymph nodes around the aorta, which are the lateral aortic group of lymph nodes. Nerve supply, it is supplied by 10th, 11th and 12th thoracic nerves. The afferent fibers, they pass through the renal plexus, the vein from is related to the kidneys. So in the capsule, if it is stretched, that is referred to the renal angle. That part is called loin. Then it radiates, which is called groin. That the same thing. Renal angle, angle between 12th rib and the lateral border of the erector spinae, which forms the renal angle. We press in this angle, the patient may feel tenderness. In case of renal stones or any like stretching pain related to the kidney, kidneys can be palpated bimanually by placing one hand in the loin, that is the posterior part, posterior abdominal wall at the renal angle, and one in front in the anterior abdominal wall, and pressing it to feel the kidney at the end of deep inspiration. Horseshoe kidney. Normally the kidneys they develop in the pelvic cavity and they ascend up. If the lower poles of the kidneys they are joined with each other, it looks like a horseshoe. This is called horseshoe kidney. Here the further ascent is prevented by the origin of different vessels, the superior mesenteric artery. So it is blocked here. The further ascent is prevented by the origin of the inferior mesenteric artery. This is superior mesenteric. The lower part, which is fused, lies in front of the aorta and the inferior vena cava. Then floating kidney. If normally kidney is suspended on the posterior abdominal wall with like different fascia, as we know. Sometimes, if that fascia is not that tight, then it will produce like kidneys will, the upper pole is tilted downwards. which will cause kinking of the renal vessels and also the ureter. As the ureter is kinked or the pelvis of the pelvis is kinked, then urine collected in the renal pelvis will not pass through. The person will feel so much of pain. Once that urine collected in the pelvis, if it is voided, that time the pain is relieved. That condition is called as Diethel's crisis. Then blood trauma to the kidney is common. Even the stab injuries to the kidney is also common. As kidney is not contractile, it will bleed profusely. The penetrating injuries are usually caused with the stab wounds or gunshot wounds. That time it will bleed profusely because the kidneys, they get larger amount of the blood supply. It's a 25% of the cardiac output passes through the kidneys. That's why the renal injuries will bleed profusely. Renal pain, it's the same thing. I'll explain that. Renal pain we feel in the region of the renal angle. This part is called as loin. Renal pain will be there. If this part is pressed, the patient will feel more pain. That is called tenderness. In case of renal stones, if the kidneys are present in the pelvis, the person will feel dull aching pain. If it passes downwards, then the pain will radiate from this is loin. This is a typical shooting pain which occurs from loin to groin, radiating pain from loin to groin, like this. The pain starts here, it shoots downwards. This is the groin. From behind this part to anteriorly. It's if the stone tries to pass downwards. If the stone is in this area, that's pelvis, the person will feel dull aching pain. If suppose the stone is dislodged, it tries to run downwards through the ureter, enter into the bladder. As ureter has a small cavity, it will produce so much of pain while passing downwards. That time the pain radiates in this manner. Loin to groin. It's called renal colic. There are different types of stones which are formed in the kidney, such as calcium stones, mixed stones, struite stones, oxalate stones, different types. Or the struite stones are the mixed calcium, magnesium, phosphate stones, which if they are large enough, they may completely occupy this renal pelvis. The removal of the stones is done either by blasting the stones and later the small pieces are taken out. Hydronephrosis. Suppose that stone, it passes downwards and it is large enough to obstruct this canal. That time the pelvis is dilated and even the cup-shaped major and minor calyces, they are also enlarged. They become club-shaped. In case of severe hydronephrosis, hydronephrosis is a condition where the ureter is blocked and there is a backflow of urine into the pelvis. It is enlarged and even the minor major calyces, they are enlarged to form club shaped. That is the hydronephrosis. In kidney tumors, numerous benign and malignant tumors are common. The malignant are seen in the kidney tumors. Malignant tumors, they have a tendency to spread along the renal vein. Thrombus is formed in the renal vein. The left renal vein, it receives the left testicular vein in case of males. This may rarely become blocked, producing the left-sided varicocele, that is enlargement of the testicular veins. Varicocele is like it feels back of worms. The dilated veins, they are felt like bag of worms. Polycystic kidney, the secretory part and the collecting part, suppose they fail to fuse with each other. That time, there occurs a cystic dilatation of the collecting tubules and the secretory part, which is seen like this. The kidney, it is a polycystic kidney disease, which may be bilateral. The accessory renal arteries are common in 30% of the individuals. The accessory renal arteries, they are very important in case of renal transplantation. They play a major role. If the accessory arteries, they are blocked, that part won't get the blood supply properly. And these accessory arteries, they may block the ureter sometimes. Like you can see here. In case of chronic renal failure, the dialysis is done to like filter the blood. Sometimes the peritoneal dialysis is also done in case of renal failure. One clinical scenario here we can read related to the renal colic. A 15-year-old boy admitted in a hospital with the complaints of severe left flank pain or loin pain is typical of the renal condition. That's the renal colic, the stone in the kidneys. He presents with the hematuria, that is the blood in the urine, for 10 days. Patient has no fever, gave history of inadequate fluid intake. If you don't have adequate fluids, that's water, then there occurs the deposition of calcium and other salts in the renal pelvis that will form the stones, that is called nephrolithiasis. Renal stones is also called as nephrolithiasis, and he has a history of family history of nephrolithiasis. What might be the clinical condition? Yes. This is left-sided renal colic. One more is a 16-year-old boy received a severe kick in the right flank while playing football at school. On examination in the emergency department, his right flank was severely bruised and his right postovertebral angle was extremely tender on palpation. A specimen of urine showed microscopic hematuria. A diagnosis of damage to the right kidney was made. Which is wrong among the following statements? The kidney tends to be crushed between the 12th rib and the vertebral column. The kidney can be injured by fractures of the 12th rib or 11th and 12th ribs, is on the left side. In most patients, the kidney damage is mild and results in nothing more than microscopic hematuria, as in this case. In severe kidney lacerations, extensive hemorrhage and extravasation of blood and urine into the pararenal fat occurs. In severe kidney lacerations, a mass caused by extravasated blood and urine behind the peritoneum may be especially on the right side. Both kidneys lie on the posterior abdominal wall and are at the same vertebral level. So which among these six is wrong? Yes? Have you listened to the clinical scenario? Yes, what is the answer for this? What is the answer for this? Okay, if you are not interested, I'll finish it off. One more question was there. I'll just skip it. I'll conclude with this about the anatomy of the kidney. So this is about the anatomy of the kidney. I'll conclude the theory class after this. After 5 minutes, I'll show you the, or we can continue with the demonstration of the kidney. Okay. I'll end the meeting.